What's happening? How's everybody? It's so good to see everybody. Merry Christmas. I was going to give you all your gifts tomorrow, but I may have given you one today. So,
And now.
who's got the first question? Wow. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are
Good.
you?
Like that red?
Yes. I'm wondering about we were talking earlier about the pension and.
Y'all been around, y'all been sitting in here too long. Too long.
And also the vacation days. How much of a parachute will the commissioner have on his way out the door?
I'm not sure he has a parachute, but let me just say, you know, he was hired, I think that was what, 2006? He was hired by Martin O'Malley back in 2000. So he's actually served the city for about 16 years. I can tell you the city's responsibility here. He has a payout of about, for about 160 days, $97,077.61. We don't believe in, we want to make sure everybody gets whatever they've accumulated. His personal days about $19,446. That's 32 days that he's accumulated, so a total of about $116,524 obligation by the city of Baltimore. That's our obligation.
And how did the resignation letter come about? Did you come to him and
Very
ask
nice
him
letter. Very nice
to
letter.
write it, or did he come to you and offer it after hearing what you had said? Or?
Well, I think I've been very clear. This was a campaign promise that I'd made some time ago, that I thought it was important that the city go in a different direction as it relates to its housing department. I said it all along, that I thought it was important that we look at separating HABC and HCD, and that we change our direction as it relates to the housing department. Very concerned about community development, as you all well know. You know, I want to see neighborhood development all across the city, where neighborhoods have the same amenities in one part of the city that they have in others. I've just not seen what I believe could be a vision for Baltimore in terms of neighborhoods and communities. I think everybody in Baltimore should know the address by heart, 1563 North Fulton Street. A church that has been burnt out for over a decade, and as the senator who represented that part of the district raised questions about it several times, given a few proposals around it, but nothing has happened. And my understanding, probably the next 30 days or so, we'll see something different happen with that particular property. And then I think many of you remember the incident with the Gilmore homes, and I just think it's time that the city goes in a different direction. And so I did receive a letter. As you well know, I can let Mr. Graziano go on the house, on the city side, but he also had a contract with HABC. And so I do get to appoint all of the board members there. In fact, 4 of them, I believe, are up for reappointment for 2017. And I made it very clear, and I think I made it clear in the press conference here, that they needed to abide by the wishes of the mayor, and that was a change direction for the housing department. And so we did receive a letter. His last day will be January the 6th.
So in terms of separating HABC from community development, where does that put your plans now as far as how far along you are with that?
Well, we're in, as I mentioned earlier, when I first came in the door, we'll be doing a national search. And I want someone and folks who understand the clear vision for the city, that there is a concentration on our housing authority needs. When you think about public housing, what that should look like, what the future of public housing is, that we're helping people inside of public housing to get training and jobs and opportunities, so that that it does not become a lifestyle, that people get an opportunity to help us lower our roles in terms of the Section 8 or public housing. Those who have to live in public housing, we respect that, but we also want public housing not to be distinguished from other housing in our city. That when you go through a housing development that is a HABC property, that you can't tell the difference, that it blends in the city. And so that's what we're looking forward to, and I'm excited about it.
So are you looking for one person or 2 people?
We haven't decided. I think, we've decided that we're going to separate those 2 agencies, so obviously there'll be 2 people. I may be looking for 3 people, somebody to oversee all, both agencies. So we've got our national search out there, and we're very clear in terms of vision and direction.
So what is it, so just if you could talk a little more about your goal as you look for this leadership is to do what? As it pertains to this whole effort of housing and community development and the housing authority?
So let me just say, one of the things I did, my cabinet's introduction to me was by taking a tour of one part of the city, and we've determined today that those tours probably may not end for our cabinet members, because I need them to see what I see. I need them to see that down in the Canton area, we can develop communities and neighborhoods with amenities. But yet, when we do something like lure a ShopRite to Liberty Heights, that we do nothing around the perimeters of that particular shopping venue, that there's no retail development there, that that we leave the Ambassador Theater still boarded up, but yet we want to lure businesses to that community. And when we're building houses and so forth in our city, that they deserve the same amenities. I don't care what part of the city they're in. And I've just not seen that, Jane, in every part of the city. And that's what we need. When we took the tour the other day of that part of West Baltimore, I asked the cabinet members, how many supermarkets did you see along the way? And I can tell you, on a 2.5-hour tour of Baltimore City, I think we passed by maybe one. And that's just not acceptable in a city. And this was in that part of the city. And I would venture to say that if you were in other parts of the city, you would see differently. And I have to get people to think about the entire city. I want somebody who understands that the houses in Harlem Park are no different from the houses around Patterson Park. But we've not done the same type of development in that particular part of the city that we should be doing over in the Harlem Park area. So I just need someone who understands my vision for making sure that when we are building communities, that we build the amenities along with it.
How does separating the agencies make that happen?
There's a focus on community development, and then there's a focus on the Housing Authority of Baltimore. Much of the monies that come through HABC are heavy federal dollars, and I don't want us missing out on federal dollars as it relates to dealing with some of the issues in housing. We're supposed to accommodate those who are homeless. We're supposed to make sure that people who need public housing are able to get it. Our rolls are swollen and people can't get into public housing, and so we keep building shelter after shelter. So there needs to be a clear vision around what the city's needs are as it relates to those who have to have public housing.
What do you say to the people who do live in public housing now who feel like the city hasn't heard them, hasn't helped them?
That we're hearing them and we're going to help them.
And is that a direct result of a leadership vacuum by Mr. Graziano?
For me, it's about vision. It's about the vision that I've talked with my people who are a part of my administration. It's about a vision that goes beyond my servitude as a leader of this city. It's about what I want this city to look like. I want amenities across the board. I want public housing to blend into the rest of the community. I want there to be shopping opportunities for people who move to the city. I don't want folks having to travel outside of the city to get their bread, their milk, or whatever they need to get. I don't want them traveling outside of the city to take their clothes to the cleaners. I don't want them traveling outside of the city to go to movie theaters and so forth. I want those amenities in the city. And so what I'm saying is I don't want any agency in this city operating in silos. There has to be a connection between housing and economic development. There has to be a relationship with HABC. All of these relationships matter. There has to be a relationship with the transportation department in terms of how people get around our city. What I'm trying to do is create a cabinet of folks who understand how important collaboration is.
Could you talk about the vacant housing problem with rising vacancies in the city? It seems to have kind of cracking that problem has eluded your predecessors despite their best efforts. What are you going to do?
I don't really think that it has eluded my predecessors. When I think about in 2000 when I came into city government, when I remember the number being 44,000 vacant houses in the city. That number has lowered. And so many of the programs that my predecessors had started in the city have been working, whether it's vacancy values, clean and green. Many of those programs have worked. So my job is not to diminish those programs, but to enhance them.
How so?
Well, again, that's what I want a visionary housing person to be able to help us to do. I tell folks I don't know everything, but I do know smart people when I see them.
Mayor, I had a question about the escalating the water bills. Son's written about it, other TV stations. You yourself, I think last week, alluded to that you had got a huge bill.
And mine was years ago. And now we said we
But we're
fixed
still,
it,
we're
and
still
now
having
we're
this
still
problem.
getting. Yes.
And Public Works is saying, well, we're switching over to this new system. And have you contacted the folks over there to just see what's going on?
What I've asked for is a complete briefing of this new water system, because I'm getting letters and calls every single day from my constituents, and if I'm getting them, they should be getting them. And if they're getting them and I'm getting them, then that means that we've got a problem. And it's a problem that we need to take a close look at, and it's a problem that we will, and it's a problem that we'll do everything we can to fix it, because nobody, I mean, I've heard people say they have water bills as high as $2,000 and $3,000. Somebody told me today somebody got an $80,000 water bill. Really? I don't even know what companies and corporations are getting, but I think that would raise an eyebrow for anybody who's in this position.
And the DPW is not very responsive to any questions that we might have on that
Well,
topic.
maybe we need to bring them before you so that you can get your answers.
Tell us when.
I'll drag them to the next
Shall return.
Mayor Pugh, about the DOJ, I know you get asked this a lot, but recently Loretta Lorenz, others, activists have been sort of pressuring on this issue. Any new
Really?
thoughts about it? Yeah.
Well, let me be real clear. And I've said this to Loretta Lynch when she was sitting in my box and taunting how great my negotiating team has been. Thank you for that. And that when you're in negotiations, I think those negotiations should take place first. There is no agreement on my desk. Let's be real clear. And this is to the advocates and to whoever does not understand the process. Please understand the process. That, I walked into this office, a week, 10 days ago. There was no DOJ agreement on my desk. The process is, and my understanding of the conversations that have taken place, that in the previous administration, there was a discussion around having some type of mediation or agreement by November the 1st. Apparently, when the report came in with 21 different areas, and as I think the mayor announced that there's no way in the world that she could get through that and prepare an agreement to be signed by herself, and that it would be left to me to sign. And so here we fast forward December 6th. I think we were all partying together. You all may not have been. And the following day, December the 7th, I was here early in the morning, ready to run our city. And I hear this conversation around a DOJ agreement that we don't have. And so I want you all to know that firsthand, this past week, I sat in on our negotiations. And I can tell you that they're going well. And I can also tell you that it wasn't until about a week and a half ago, if not sooner, that we got all of the 21 different areas that they want to negotiate on. And so my understanding is that we've gotten through about 50% of those. Our goal is to get through them as quickly as possible. And our goal is to get it done before the next administration takes hold. And so for those who think that there's an agreement on my desk, no, there's not. For those who don't understand the process begins with the negotiations that is currently taking place and taking place every single day to make sure that we come to an agreement that is amenable to those who are in the negotiating process.
Can you give us an idea of what the hang-ups are? What's not negotiable?
No, it's, let me just say the average negotiation of a contract like this has been 13 to 14 months. That's the average. Ferguson, 13 months with 50 police officers. New Orleans, 14 months with half the police department that we have, and their report was nowhere near the length of ours. We're now in the 4th month, okay? Not even in the 4th month of negotiation. That's in terms of having received the report, the 163-page report. And the end of September was when we got most of, and then got some additional stuff about a week ago. So the process is that you will go through every different area of concern. My issue right now is to make sure that they are negotiating fairly, that it's not a hostile environment, and I can tell you, having sat in on the DOJ and the city's negotiations, that it's a give and take. And yesterday I had a conversation with Ms. Gupta, who is leading the process for the DOJ, And as she said to me, she's more optimistic having had a conversation with me.
But the other part of that story about the length of time, more recently, these consent decrees have been agreed to in anywhere from 5 to 7 months. Cleveland, Seattle, Albuquerque. And considering that the city and DOJ seem to be in agreement in principle, they were signing an agreement in principle in August, we're just trying to discern what specific items are harder to agree on.
Jane, I don't know that that is the fact. My understanding is when they sat down, that they thought that they would come to an agreement November the 1st. And when they got the 21 different areas that were to be negotiated upon, that they did not feel that they would be able to completely get through those 21 different areas. And so as I've come into this office, I can tell you that they've gotten through 50% of those. And so that's not a 4-month process, and that's not even a 5-month process. So we are, and I think if you would hear from the city solicitor, he would tell you, and this is what was the discussion before Trump got elected, that we were moving rather rapidly. And so the reality is that we are moving rather rapidly, and I'm accelerating that process to say move as rapidly as possible. But I do think it's unfair that folks who don't understand the process expect us to do something when we don't have anything. So the process to me is moving smoothly. Congressman Cummings sat in here yesterday with Ms. Eiffel, who I said also didn't completely understand what was taking place with this administration. And I think they have a better understanding as to where we are. And any of the advocates or council people, we're going to brief them because some folks don't understand the process at all. And we want to make sure they understand the process, as I have begun to understand the process.
So I'll ask
Yes.
again. Of the items that remain, there are 11. I think you told me last week it was 9 of 21, but let's say there's 10 or 11. What specifically hasn't been resolved? What specifically is DOJ asking this police department to do and this city to do that hasn't been resolved?
Well, I think that what I'm hearing thus far is that we want to make sure that we're not duplicating agencies. That they understand that we do have body cameras already on officers, that we do have diversity training already in place, that we have passed some laws that they weren't aware that have been passed. So we just have to make sure that they understand what we've done and that it all, gets mixed in together and that we're not charged to do things that we're already doing or already done. Our goal is to get through this. And my understanding is that in the next week or so, or a couple of weeks, we'll be able to do that. Our goal is to get it done before the next administration.
Okay, folks. Thank you.
Merry holiday.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll bring your candy cans tomorrow.